Good evening, everybody. My name is Alyssa Carlson, and I'm here at my house. I'm a program specialist at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. We are so glad that you guys have joined us on Facebook for this special Q&A. We have, as the museum, we are so excited to have partnered with the International Wildlife Film Festival. And tonight we are going to chat with Carrie and the directors and filmmakers from Kurils with Love. And we are looking for your comments and questions for those filmmakers in the chat. So if you can give us a hey, howdy, how are you doing? Down in the chat, let us know who you're watching with, where you're watching from, and any questions you have from the filmmakers. We are so excited to also offer to our members of the museum some unlimited access to the International Wildlife Film Festival. And you can find out more about that festival and how to get access in your email. And without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Carrie, the artistic director of the International Wildlife Film Festival. Carrie, take it over.
Thank you, Alyssa. We're so happy to be partnering with the museum. I grew up in Denver, and I have a close relationship with the museum and was a member all the time I was growing up. So we're just happy to be able to share and to have you all learn about this extraordinary film that we're talking about today. So that film is from Kurils with Love. Taylor Rees is the director. Renan here was the cinematographer and co-director, and Rishi, who is sitting here with us, was like science communicator on set, though he did like sound and additional camera and underwater work, and is running their impact campaign. So I think one of the most beautiful parts of this film is really organic collaboration, which is what good filmmaking is about. And we'll get into a lot about the film. You can see the film at wildlifefilms.org. You can buy a pass. The pass is sliding scale, $5 at minimum. So we hope you take advantage. And if you haven't already seen the film, you should definitely check it out today. Taylor, do you want to just talk a little bit about yourself and about the film? And then we'll go through and hear from all of you guys briefly.
Sure. Thank you so much, Carrie, and thank you as well to the Denver Museum. My name is Taylor. I'm a filmmaker with a background in ecology and environmental science, and so this film was like just an incredible opportunity to be involved with. It was a very kind of surprise twist situation where Renan and myself and a number of other photographers and friends, scientists, Rishi and Jeff Kirby, went to the Kuril Islands in Russia, kind of on an assignment in collaboration with Tomorrow Unlocked and Kaspersky in order to document the Kurils and go on this adventure. And it was really not supposed to be much more than a tour of the region and a highlight of what was there. And on the eve, literally of departure, a Russian marine mammal biologist basically asked permission to aboard the ship and kind of hitchhike along. And at the time, we didn't even have rooms on the boat. We were like, well, there's a bunk in the hallway. Like, are you sure he wants to be there? He's this, elderly man. And he was on a mission based on the fact that his boat and his research documenting marine mammals in the region and studying marine mammals in the region was interrupted by the Rekoke volcano eruption. And so he boarded our ship, and together we all shifted the lens and the purpose of our adventure and the story onto him and his incredible story and his love for this place. And we all just feel really lucky to have had that happen, and now are using the film and an impact campaign to kind of bring light to the science of the region, the needs of the region, and why collecting data is such an important part of the process of really understanding and protecting our region. So that's my take on it. And while Renan introduces himself, I'm going to let our dog out so he doesn't scratch the door to death.
Yeah, I'm Renan. I was kind of just let Taylor run with this one because it was more of an environmental story, and it was yeah, just an incredible part of the world that we're glad to share. And I think the whole purpose of it now is to really support Vladimir and his work, which I know Rishi will talk a lot more about, and really looking forward to any questions folks might have.
I just want to jump in really quickly. Renan is quite a successful filmmaker himself and has lots of projects that him and Taylor work on together and that he's done by himself. You should definitely check out a little bit of his work, and he's being humble. But also the cinematography in the film was, I think, started by him and was really, really well done when you're talking about film craft and telling the story really clearly. So not a light contribution at all. And then Rishi, do you want to talk a little bit about what you bring to the shooting, and also maybe what you're going to bring to the film going forward too?
Sure. Thanks for the intro, Carrie. Yeah, I'm a ocean scientist at Scripps Institution of Oceanography. I'm a PhD candidate, and I sort of ended up on this film as a science communicator / whatever Renan needed help with, whatever Taylor needed help with, and just trying to assist and learn from them, and grow my own skills as a scientific communicator and storyteller. And like the rest of the crew and the crew got super inspired by Vladimir and all the work he does. And along the way, we all sort of started wondering what we could do to not just tell a story, but also bring something to this region, to the people, to Vladimir, who are really working so hard to fight for the environment there. So part of what we're doing, as Taylor mentioned, is trying to find ways to support environmental monitoring programs in the region that can help inform conservation efforts that are already ongoing with a lot of local partners, and finding ways to support that. Part of that is also helping give Vladimir specifically some of the resources that he needs, including research vessels and renovations to research stations that exist in the southern end of the island chain and things like that. As Taylor mentioned, Vladimir was hitchhiking on our boat basically because he needed to get to the spots where his time-lapse cameras were. And that's just not a very efficient way to do science and collect data and do research. And hopefully through all of this, through collaborations here at Scripps and other institutions locally, we can help build something going forward.
That's awesome. Vladimir is a really, really awesome character, and I feel like his humanity and like how much he cares for the animals and for the area really comes through in the film. There are these shots where you can just see him like he gets really excited, and he's telling the whole crew that like this sea lion is like doing something with his mouth, and just like his smile wrinkles and everything about him, he's just like, he loves his job so much. And he clearly is so adept at doing his job. And he talks a lot about the importance of data. He just seems like a filmmaker's dream when you meet a character like that can like just bring the importance and urgency of that area to life into someone's view that really cares about that person. We do have one question already, and as Alyssa is telling us on Facebook, we're really excited that there's over 70 of you guys watching. Nicole wants to know why the Kurils, and maybe you can give me a lesson on how to say that correctly too, because I keep faltering. And
Kurils.
Thank you. Why'd you pick that region, or how did this gig start?
Yeah, well, so it started with a relationship actually that Renan had with of all things, a cybersecurity company that's based in Russia, Kaspersky. And it's a very funny fit, but they're an incredible group of people who are like many companies getting involved in telling stories. And so a lot of our work as filmmakers is often to work with brands on like branded content and branded storytelling. And so the original impetus of this was to, they wanted to work with us to kind of do like an adventure storytelling short film in the region. Chris Burkhart, who is another adventure photographer, was also involved. Chris and Renan had been researching the region for a really long time, especially for its beauty. And then as I was brought in to kind of spearhead the scientific angle, I also reached out and brought in Rishi, whom I've known through scripts as an oceanographer, as well as Jeff Kirby, who is a climate change ecologist and storyteller. And so it really was just kind of our ragtag crew of filmmakers and photographers, and then Rishi and Jeff and myself as people with scientific backgrounds. And we thought like, oh, we'll just go to this area and just kind of, do a photo essay essentially in a short film. And and then the Vladimir story kind of evolved from that. But Renee, you probably have more to add to.
Well, we hitchhiked before Vladimir hitchhiked because it was the owner of Kaspersky's favorite place in the world, and he's a very gregarious cybersecurity billionaire extraordinaire, and we thought the story was going to be about him because he might have been a climate change denier, and we thought that was a really interesting thing, but turns out that wasn't true. But we were able to be part of like his special place and have him take us there and take part in like the boat that he already had chartered there. So that's kind of the beginning.
The place is phenomenal. I mean, it looks gorgeous, and I really liked how there was some pieces in the film where you guys talk about the ethics of showing such a gorgeous place like that. And then, is it great because then everybody can see like the stunning volcanic islands coming out of the sea, and then they all want to go there. And or is that something that ethically you think about, or that you think about when you're shooting something like this and presenting it to the world?
Yeah, we included a line from Chris Burkhart in that piece, and which was that, is it right to show the world a place which could drive unregulated tourism to it, especially, and I would say that the tourism in this region is important and it's beautiful, but it isn't necessarily regulated as like some ecologists or conservationists might want. So it definitely crossed our minds, like, is this the right thing to do and how do we do it? But what really changed that conversation for us was Vladimir himself. I mean, I think for him, the fact that before this started, I actually went to Scripps and met Rishi and brought Pavel Torrid, the producer of the film, to California. And we went to Scripps to be like, how can we find like the appropriate person to be the voice of this region from a scientific perspective? And we researched and Rishi like went through all of his networks at Scripps being like, we can't find like anybody who like does research. And we were looking in Japan, and we couldn't find like a single person who had dedicated their life to us. When we finally met Vladimir, incidentally, was this, and his message being like, oh my God, like I wish people knew about this place because I need help protecting it. And he repeated multiple times to us privately and multiple times on camera, which we also included in the film as a small note, is that it is important. It's important for him, as someone I would consider like a guardian of this place, to have visibility and support. And so really, as filmmakers, all you can ever do is trust the people who are closest to the land and closest to the story, with their notions of what is right or wrong in that, and knowing that was what Vladimir wanted, and that together we're working with him to try to utilize the kind of the tidal wave of this film and the attention that it can garner to help support his research is definitely like the Northern Star that we're sticking to. But it's definitely a tricky subject. I know Renan's worked in Bears Ears a lot. We both have, but he's really close to the issue, and you're seeing how that's driving like too much tourism, right?
Yeah, in some cases it can be too much, but yeah, this all is just I guess a big experiment in how gathering around a place and an idea can support a specific scientific objective on a grassroots level. And there was a nonprofit started, and the GoFundMe page is now live for that, and we're excited to see the end goal is really to have Vladimir have his own boat so he doesn't have to hitchhike anymore. And even to the end of the trip, we just kept forfeiting our own self kind of photography objectives to go check on a time-lapse camera or bring water to his team. And the dedication of all those postdocs, I just watched the 8-hour string out of all the behind-the-scenes footage that Rishi shot, including the research they're doing on that island that's not in the film, which is incredible. Drone.
It's in the film at the end.
In the very, very end, but not like the interview with them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's incredible stuff with neural network, machine learning, teaching drones how to count population of 100,000 animals in a matter of half an hour or less, which used to take weeks. So they're these scientists out there quietly doing these incredible things, and I had no idea. It's really amazing.
So one of the questions that people are asking, and it kind of gets into the filmmaking process, is, you know, going through so many hours of footage, which I'm sure you guys did. And then I also want to, like, in terms of that process, but also, you know, is there little pieces of that film and little pieces of those footage that you have that you're still kind of gonna lay down for your impact campaign and for us to see more and for us to stay engaged? And, you know, what does that look like, and what kind of stuff can we look forward to seeing a little more glimpses of?
Yeah, we came back with I think like 60 to 70 hours of footage. And, you know, it's always a difficult process with films, whether they're commissioned and there's a little bit of budget for the edit, or it's a passion project and you're taking it on yourself, but ultimately you have to cull it down. And you know, there's so many people that are involved, editors and the musicians, and, you know, so what we were actually scoped out to create was a 10 to 15 minute film, and we came out in the end with, I think, something over 22 or 25 minutes. And so that was heartbreaking enough, I think, to have to leave things out. But Forrest Borey, who is the editor based in Los Angeles, who we worked with, did an incredible job, like going through all 60 hours of that footage, working with us to kind of figure out, like, you know, do we try to pack it in every single detail and every single scientific element? But what he and I really came to the decision of together was to try to help people kind of fall in love with the moment of being with Vladimir, because it's a really difficult thing, I think, especially in environmental film, you know, how to help people to care. And, you know, of course, like, one approach is like give them all the science and give them all the data, but another approach is like help people feel close and attached to a character the way that we felt with Vladimir. So we, you know, made the decision to focus on a couple key moments in our journey, most closely associated with him and his perspective. And there's so much footage. So we're working on a behind the scenes piece right now. We're hoping to have a little bit of resources to create multiple pieces, like Rishi, Jeff Kirby, myself have all of our graduate research has been in climate change. And so we want to do like a climate change piece, and everyone really spoke, you know, there was a lot of climate change discussions that happened, you know, some over vodka shots, some not. That's obviously a part of the film. You know, moments of like behind the science. Renan, obviously, like the cinematography that you see was an adventure in itself. The drones that he and Jeff and Chris Burkhardt and Ryan and Ted Hesser were all flying all the time to be able to capture this landscape was its own adventure that we called the Drone Boys. So I think we will be able to share more of that and hope to be able to do so. I'm nearly positive we will.
I just have to give one shout out. So Jeff Kirby was an alumni of the IWFF Labs program. So every summer or every festival, except for this weird one, we have a week-long scientific communication intensive, and there's all these incredible alumni that have been doing great work, and Jeff is one of them, and we love him, and we hope that we always have a really close relationship with him, and it was great to see his name on this film and to hear that you worked with him. I also just want to mention that I really appreciated, so talking about the vodka and all the vodka shots, I really appreciate that the camera was inside those vodka shot circles, and that we felt like, I think that that is one of the reasons we felt like we were part of the story. And I just think that choices like that in terms of the cinematography seem kind of like just something that just happens when you're shooting on set, but are actually really intentional. And I appreciated those choices very much.
Thanks. The one, I guess the end of the film, the entire final interview was like really, really late one night. Just, you know, we had a lot of like late nights like that, but just with an iPhone. Just Vladimir like really breaking down and getting really, really emotional, and maybe saying things you might not have said in other contexts. So it's cool how it all goes these days.
Yeah, I felt like some of that was definitely intentional, and then like Renan was saying, that last night, I think it was the three of us up at 4:30 in the morning or something like that, and Vladimir's just pouring his heart out, and you know, suddenly Renan pulls out his iPhone and is capturing it. So it's also a credit to all the people who are behind the camera a lot to keep those moments in mind and know when to capture them.
Yeah, it came across really authentically. We do have some more questions. One of them is from Sarah, and she says, beyond those at the research station, what other traffic is there in that region, and what else is going on there?
Do you want me to?
Yeah, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So a lot of the traffic in that area seems to be relegated to fishing communities. So the northern islands in the chain are, for the most part, uninhabited. Same with the central chain; they're also uninhabited. When you get further south on the island chain, you have some fishing communities there. Long before this sort of time period, there were indigenous communities that would make seasonal trips to these island chains, but they're in northern Japan now. So yeah, a lot of the traffic there is just fishing communities for the most part, and there's not that much traffic even from the scientific community. It seems it's mostly Vladimir and his crew, which is quite small, and they're doing science in a way that I can say that a lot of ocean scientists here in the U.S. would not be able to do it. It's really tough sorts of research, really grueling sorts of work, and they're pulling it off phenomenally, doing world-class research under circumstances where they could probably use more support. And yeah, there's also a lot of industrial fishing going on in the area, which is something that I know Vladimir wants to understand a little more, how that's impacting the ecosystem.
He talked in the film so much about like how great the data was and how he could get such great counts, and he's clearly so diligent, and it's incredible to think about him doing this while he's hitchhiking and patching things together. Do you guys have any stories sort of about those MacGyver instances, or those instances where his team has been super inventive about the resources that they do have?
Yeah, I mean, one of the classic stories that we heard while we were there, this isn't so much about maybe the technical aspect of data collection, which I know Rishi could definitely help fill us in, but just in terms of like being scrappy and so dedicated to this place, like there was a period of time after the fall of the Soviet Union where, we were out there in this large, safe boat, often like rocking in massive seas and storms. And there was a time where he did the whole, like what took us 13 days and probably took him, 30. He did in a Zodiac, so in like a small blow up boat. And the only thing he could fill in that boat in order to make the journey to all of his, to all of these sea lion and seal rookeries was to fill the boat with gasoline, basically, just enough food to survive. And so we've seen photos, and a couple of them are in the film, of those early days where he and his crews were just, really beginning to dedicate themselves to the ecology and the science of this region. And if all they could do is head out in a Zodiac and go visit those populations and do data collection, like they did it. And Rishi, do you know more about like kind of how the evolution of the early time lapse and tagging stuff that he's been working on?
Yeah, a little bit. In terms of the MacGyver-y, scrappy sort of stuff, though, I think it was cool that he told me that one of his postdocs that's working with him basically learned from scratch with no programming experience how to write a machine learning program to take all the images that he was capturing in these time lapses and from drones and things like that and do automated counts of everything, and just successfully managed to teach him that from scratch, which is amazing. And, I think back in the day, you had to do a lot of those counts manually by branding seals and tracking them through brands. And luckily, sitting on these islands with binoculars and scoping them out and seeing what they're doing and how big the seals or the northern the sea lions harems were and things like that. So stuff like that is super beneficial to the region. And and I also don't think Vladimir has changed very much. When we were on Ushashir, when we were about to camp out, it gets pretty cold there at night, and he wasn't sure if there was room in the tent for him. And I remember him looking over to me and saying like, "Oh, it's okay if you don't have room. I've got a tarp over here. I could just pull the tarp over me and it'll be fine." So he's 61, and I think he's scrappy as ever.
He's the best. I think I want to give you guys the opportunity to talk more about the website that you guys are putting together for funds and resources for Vladimir. I also am going to take a moment. We have about 10 minutes, but I do want to make sure people see this film. It's available today. I know that Denver Museum members have a special password to the pass holder thing, but it's also a really accessible $5 or more if you want. And you should go see this movie. It's 22 minutes. It will, at the same time as warm your heart, it will also just make you want to extend and support and reach beyond yourself. And I think it's really special. And I think that you guys have a talented team. I think you guys should just keep on going on like adventures and stay open the way you were. Like, who knows who you come across? Maybe it's another Vladimir. And I think that's such a beautiful part of filmmaking. I also just figured I'd throw one more question out. It's a nice one to end on. So give a little plug for Vladimir. And then also someone was inquiring about the difference, if you guys consider yourself journalists or, how you walk the line between journalists and advocacy right now. And it's Earth Day tomorrow. So let's talk about that too.
Yeah, I think it's documentary film, if you're entering the space of like approaching any kind of, I guess, particularly like humanitarian or environmental subjects through documentary, like it's good to recognize that of all fields perhaps provides the most freedom and artistic freedom, but also the most responsibility for knowing how in what ways you're doing that. Whereas like journalism, of course, has a pretty strict set of rules and standards, and people come up through journalism with like a rigorous way of telling a story. And I think it's a real pleasure for us to be in the doc space right now and to be able to infuse storytelling with an aim of obviously representing what happened as truthfully as possible, but also to know that it's up to us to like kind of figuring out what elements of like heart and emotion and art we want to bring into that, and for what purpose. And in this case, it's a very intentionally advocacy driven film at the end of the day, for sure. And so the hope of this was to help people connect with like what Vladimir is really doing and who he is and what this place is. And I don't think we consider ourselves journalists. We definitely consider ourselves documentary filmmakers, and sometimes that means erring in the advocacy space, and sometimes it means trying to stay more journalistically rigorous. And yeah, I think this film is definitely advocatorial, but it's also true. There's nothing about it that didn't like happen. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, especially now, the more we channel our journalism into like specific subjects that we care deeply about, and obviously opinions get wrapped up in that. And now more than ever, the more positive messages and things that we can support with the reach of all these incredible platforms that now exist, and the fact that you're saying that this is one of the most successful festivals even within this crazy time, and we can reach so many people in this way, that it's a tool that needs to be used. And sometimes maybe just staying back and like a purely journalistic approach might not be the nudge that it needs. So we're trying to nudge people to support Vladimir in this instance.
Rishi, I know it's definitely a topic that's hot on your mind too.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's been very advocacy driven in many ways, because part of the reason I got to know Taylor in the first place was through environmental justice projects that me and the Center of Interdisciplinary Environmental Justice in San Diego are all working with, and thinking about ways to not just tell stories, but to build support for communities in different places that will be self-sustaining, that will lead to change, that will lead to something different than the status quo. And because I'm still new to, I guess, the world of storytelling, and I'm learning a lot about it, it's kind of nice because I don't know the rules. So that means I just, try to approach things in a way that feels organic. And, I know when we were on the ship, we all had some questions about things like the carbon footprint of going there, and the material costs of the equipment we were using and things like that. And really feeling like, to make it worth it, it wasn't going to be just about putting out this amazing story, but also thinking, how do you connect it to what's going on in the real world, so to speak.
Yeah. So where can we go to like stay engaged and still be involved and see more footage?
So from Kurils withlove.com is the website that we launched today in partnership with Kaspersky and Tomorrow Unlocked, who supported this entire expedition and film. And there you can learn more about Vladimir's work and science, and also about the various impact campaigns that are large collaborations with everyone involved, including us, Rishi, Jeff, Vladimir, other scientists that he works with. And there's a GoFundMe page, and you'll also learn more about our mission to get Vladimir his own boat. So from KurilsWithLove.com.
Get Vladimir a boat.
Boat.
We really appreciate this love letter to Vladimir and the sea lions and to the area. And we also want to wish you guys a sort of happy premiere. I mean, it's a big deal, and I know that a ton of work has gone onto it, and it might be a little weird to celebrate this way, but like there's so many people here. We're all collectively viewing and supporting you. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
And thank you to the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. You guys just made us feel so good and lifted us up and professionally executed all of this, and we couldn't be more appreciative. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Carrie. This was very awesome. I feel so excited about Earth Day after watching one film. And like Carrie said, like I said at the beginning, DMNS members, you have access to the film festival. And Carrie mentioned it's a super low cost pass to get in, and donations are always appreciated. And we enjoyed partnering with you guys very much. So thank you, Carrie. Thanks, Taylor, Renan, Rishi. This was awesome. And we'll see you guys next time. Good luck with your festival.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.